Hey guys, John Lee Dumas here, founder and host of EO Fire, and you're listening to Bravepreneur Parents Academy with ldquo.
Welcome to Bravepreneur Parents Academy, where the world's most inspiring entrepreneurs reveal their most defining childhood moments and share their legacy for raising brave little heroes who will grow up to change the world. And now, he still reads comic books under the blanket at bedtime. Please welcome your host, best-selling author, award-winning speaker, and self-confessed geek dad, ldquo. You know, like the hotel in Vegas? Yeah, no, that's really his name. ldquo.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Bravepreneur Parents Academy. Today, I'm speaking to a dynamic young man who is taking the world by storm. I'm speaking of Rob Dial. Rob's the co-host of the MWF Motivation Podcast. They're inspiring you to become the best version of yourself. Now, Rob believes leaders are not born, they're groomed. And if that's the case, we're going to put him to the test today. We're actually going to find out how Rob can transform us, especially as we're going into this new year. Now, Rob is a young guy, but he's been through his own share of adversity. We're going to talk about Rob's childhood, his early career, and how he was able to overcome. Please help me welcome this young superstar, Mr. Rob Dial. Welcome.
Man, that was awesome. Can you just, I want to have a phone call full with you every time I walk into a room. that was the best intro I've ever had. I felt like I was about to go into a boxing match or something.
I also do birthdays and bar mitzvahs.
That was awesome. Well,
I appreciate it. I'm glad to have you on, man, because you are really helping a lot of people out. Your podcast is fairly young. Yeah. What, less than 3 months?
Yeah, less than 3 months. Yep. Next week will be 3 months it's been up.
3 months, less than 3 months, over 100,000 downloads. Yeah. Dude, you're killing it.
Yeah, it's I was excited my first day to get 44 downloads. So I went into it with no expectations but high hopes, and I have been satisfied with the results of, people that are really being impacted from it. That was my only goal.
But let's talk about the 44, though. Let's talk about the 44. Those first 44 people, including your mom. Okay, so let's talk about the 43.
Yeah, most of those are probably my mom. She probably went to different computers and listened to it.
Right. Okay, but let's talk about those first people. Why did you and your partner, Dean, put this podcast together? Why did you want to serve those first 44 people?
Yeah. So I guess it kind of starts off as when I was 19, I started in a company and had never been in sales before and had never been successful, and I was just a typical college student, and got into the company and had to read and transform myself in order to become successful. It took a lot of time to be successful because, I was trying to be a typical college student. I was trying to party and not grow up and just be stuck in my ways, and eventually had to start reading, had to start becoming a better person, a better version of myself every single day. And over time, I grew into a management position in the company, ran my own office of the company, trained a few thousand people with the company, and got really fulfilled by helping other people and by seeing other people grow and, talking to people who might not know how valuable they are, how good they are. Maybe nobody's ever told them that they really believe in them. And I was just that one voice that said, hey, I believe in you. Let me help you. Let me hold your hand and try to help you be successful. And then they become successful. And I see the same growth that I had as a 19-year-old through them. And so once I left the company after 6 years, I went into other ventures and other companies and started other companies and was successful at all of them. But the thing that was missing for me was the feeling that I was giving back and really helping people. And one of the things that it was just one day that kind of clicked for me. I was at Jason's Deli, which is a chain down here, and I was eating, and I was just talking with her. I was like, I feel like it was just like a fed up moment. I was like, I feel like there's so many people in this world that they just try to get by. They just live mediocre lives. They don't try to become something. And I was, my father died when I was very young, which made me realize how short life was, which made me try to take as much time as possible every single day to become better, to really get the best that I can of every single day. And I was like, I need to do something to try to impact the masses, whether it's, 10 people or whether it's 100,000 people, whatever it is. I need to do something. And I have all this information from the other company and from that I worked for, and all of the times that I motivated and inspired people to become better versions of themselves. And it eventually clicked that day after we left Jason's Deli. I was like, I need to start a podcast, and went home and started researching podcasts immediately. And a few months later, came out with it, and it was just a much quicker explosion than I was expecting. That's for sure.
There's one thing that strikes me. Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers. I don't know if that's one of the many success books that you've covered.
That's actually my what he talks about in that book, the 10,000 hours, is
Yes.
Is if you could see my wrist right now, I have a wristband that I made that says 10,000 hours on it. So I see it every time I look down at my wrist, because I'm obsessed with the 10,000 hour rule. It's just,
look at that.
I want to believe that if there's one thing that I'm achieving, looking forward and trying to become, that I can work really hard to get there.
For our friends who maybe haven't read the book or aren't familiar with the concept, could you unpack what Malcolm Gladwell is talking about when he talks about the 10,000 hour rule?
Yeah, so it's actually something, I love this topic, and I could talk about this all day long, but the reason why is because I am very much obsessed with the fact that I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I am definitely the hardest worker in the room. And so there's Malcolm Gladwell, basically what it talks about is the 10,000 hour rule. And what that means is that in order to become a master at anything, in order to become Leonardo da Vinci, you have to put 10,000 hours of practice, and not just like easy practice. It's dedicated practice into your craft. And once you get to those 10,000 hours, and it's give or take a few hundred, a few thousand hours, probably give or take 1,000 hours, I would say. Some people get there a little bit quicker. Some people it takes some more time. But in order to become like the top 0.1% of whatever it is, whether it's music or whether it's painting or whether it's a race car driver or whatever it is, you have to put 10,000 hours into it. And then most people will say, oh yeah, there's no way that it's 10,000 hours. What about Tiger Woods, who was, really successful at such a young age? And it talks about Tiger. I believe it's in Outliers he does, but if it's not that book, it's actually a book that I'm looking at right now on my desk called Talent is Overrated, where he talks about Tiger Woods. He talks about all of the different Beethoven. He talks about all of these kids who had this huge success at like 14, 15 years old. But what you know about Tiger Woods is that he was at 2 years old and his dad was teaching him to play golf. So his dad was grooming him from 2 years old. And then once he got very successful at 13, 14, 15, he had already put in close to 10,000 hours. And so I just love the fact that if I really want to achieve something, no matter what point in my life I'm at, whether I'm, 29 today or 40 in 10 years, and I decide to change my mind to become a master at something, if I really want to dedicate my craft and become good at something, and become, ultimately world class at whatever it is, I could put 10,000 hours into it and really dedicate my life to something that I feel would be worthy.
I love that this just randomly came up in our conversation, because that concept is so important to me as well. It's not one that I was always familiar with, but I'm also a big fan of educating myself about self-development and success. And so I've been seeing that trend, not just in Malcolm's book. Malcolm leveraged existing research. Yeah. And there are other books that have been written subsequently to Outliers that talk about a similar concept. So you could almost accept this as a universal law of success. If you want to get that success, you have to put in the work. Right. Don't look for shortcuts. Just go ahead, put in the work. But as Rob specified, it's not just enough to spend the time. Like some people might go to work at 9 a.m., they leave at 5 p.m., and they're like, okay, I put in a good day's work. Yep. Well, if you were playing Clash of Clans for 2 hours, if you took a 90-minute lunch, if you spent 30 minutes in the bathroom, that's not necessarily 8 hours of work. Yep. So this practice you got to put in, it's got to be deliberate practice. Right. It's got to be ideally practice that's being supervised by an expert, a coach, so they can give you immediate feedback. Don't do this, don't do that. So this is a really, really valuable concept. I'm glad you brought it up. But in your life, Rob, you have achieved success. You started achieving professional success at a young age. At 19, you started your first major career, and very quickly you rose up the ranks. When did you start putting in the time for your 10,000 hours?
Yeah, that's a good question. It wasn't something, people always, let me start it this way. People always think that somebody's an overnight success because maybe they haven't heard of them or because they didn't see all of the work that they put into something. I was talking with someone last night and they're just like, yeah, your podcast blew up. It was just like, you're an overnight success. And I was like, I didn't say anything, but in my head, I'm like, no, it's freaking not. Like, I had to put in a ton of work to do this. And so I think that that's the way it is for anything. And when I first started at 19 in the sales company that I was with, like I said, was just a typical 19-year-old. And it took about 5 months for me to really start to see some success. And the reason why was because I was not listening to what my manager had told me, what they taught me in training, all of these things. And the reason why was because I was being a typical person, I guess, where I thought I could do it on my own. I could make up my own way of doing it. And what I learned about 5 months into it was I went training. It's something they have called field training. I went on an actual appointment and watched someone who was really successful. It was our best rep in the office. I went and watched him go on 3 appointments. And I'm 19 years old, and I watched this guy do 3 appointments, and in about 3.5 hours, he made $1,000. And I had never, at 19 years old, even seen $1,000 or anywhere near that amount in my bank account. I mean, I was usually hovering around $5 or $6 in my bank account. And so when I saw him make $1,000 in just a few hours, I was like, I need to just do exactly what this guy does. And so what I did was I took notes on every single word that he said during the appointment that we were in, and all I did was just do exactly what he did. And it was funny because when you don't try to reinvent the wheel, you don't try to act like you're better than everything else, and you just follow the simple principles to being successful, which are everywhere, whether it be the company I was with or another company I started later on down the road or another sales position I might have had. It doesn't really matter if you just follow the success principles, which if you're asking yourself, what are the success principles for what I do? It's probably the same success principles that is for anything. They're almost always the exact same success principles. If you've ever read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, it's probably in there. And if it's not in that book, if you get the 17 Success Principles, which is another book, it's like the size of the Bible. It's a massive book, but it's got the success principles that you need to follow to be successful at almost anything in life, to be honest with you.
So this hits on a very important point, Rob, in that, goodness, a lot of these success principles, maybe even our grandma or grandpa has either told us about them or exemplified some of those things. Hard work, dedication, not giving up. Why do you think it is then that all of us, not even pointing any fingers, me, myself, we all start off with the best of intentions, Rob? We all start off fired up. We want to do big things. We want to change the world. We want to make a lot of money. We want to grow a successful company. We want to be great parents, whatever it is. We start up fired up, but then along the way, life happens. Yeah. We get knocked down. There are obstacles along the way. We have setbacks. We try, we fail. We try, we fail. We try, we fail. Somewhere along the way, we seem to lose that fire. Why is it that fire goes out, and how can we rekindle that fire again?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I think that, and I think about this stuff when I'm like sitting by myself in my living room. Like I don't have TV, so I think about stuff like this all the time. Where I'm just like, what is it that makes somebody, a Bill Gates from someone who might be homeless? What's the difference? They have the exact same amount of hours in the day. What's the difference? And I think the difference. I'm about 99.9% sure the difference between someone who is extremely successful and someone who is very not successful or just, has an average life or whatever it is the purpose behind what they're doing, their why behind what they're doing. And, when you think about the fact that when one thing that you said that was key is we try and we fail, we try and we fail, we try and we fail. Well, when you have a why behind what you're doing, what I mean by the why behind what you're doing, what is the reason why you're trying to get to whatever destination this is, whether it be making $100,000. So let's just use that as an example. Let's say I want to make $100,000 this year. Why do I want to make $100,000 this year? If it's because of I want material things, like I want a car or I want a house or whatever it might be, when I fall and get knocked down, if it's those material things, it might not necessarily be a strong enough why for me to get up. So I have to find out what is driving me, what to my core, and keep asking the question, why do I want it? So, for instance, let's say I want a house, right? Why do I want a house? I want a house because, when I was younger, I never really had a bedroom to live in. Okay, why do I want a house? Because I never had a bedroom to live in. I want one because, let's say my wife wanted to get a house. She's never owned a house as well. Well, why do I want to get one for her? Because of this. And you start going further and further down the rabbit hole until you get to that one why where you're just like, I want this because of this very specific reason. And you find out what that why is of that thing that's going to make you come hell or high water. You're going to accomplish this goal, and you write that down and you see it every day. And when you do fall down, you flip to that page and go, oh yeah, this is the reason why I'm working for what I'm working for. Because what people don't realize is that they think, oh, I failed, I'm just going to give up. But what they don't realize is success is 99% failure. There's just a 1% success that happens in there. The people who are the most successful in the world are also the people who have failed more than anybody else ever has failed. But what you have to realize is that they also had the why of why they keep going when they fall down. Everyone's going to fall down. Everyone's going to, completely fall on their face and embarrass themselves or have no sales or whatever it might be. But the people who are the most successful, the people who have this strong why of why they're going for the reason, whatever it is. Maybe, I know this year's podcast is family orientated. So maybe it's that you want to buy a house for your family because you want your kids to grow up in a house that was nicer because, you may have never had a house or a nice place to live. And, and you find out exactly what your reason is. And it needs to be like an emotional attachment. There needs to be some emotion to it, not just, I want to buy a house. Well, that's cool.
And I'll give you a hypothetical that probably fits a lot of the entrepreneur parents that are listening right now. So a lot of the entrepreneur parents might still be in a 9-to-5. Okay, yeah. They've started their business, it's growing, it's making some money, but it's not. It hasn't generated enough steady income to liberate them from that 9-to-5 yet. And so their why is that they want to grow that business to the point where they can quit their job. Yeah. Ask why again? Because they want, want to be more present for their family. Mm-hmm. Why do they want to be more present for their family? Maybe their mom or dad worked so hard that they weren't able to spend a lot of that quality time with them when they were kids. Yeah. And so that becomes very emotionally important for that entrepreneur parent.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to find whatever it is that drives you, and it needs to be something that you tie it to and you go, you know what, whenever I do fail, this is what's going to pick me up and make me keep working harder.
So, Rob, one of the reasons that I really like the concept of the MWF Motivation Podcast is that I heard someone liken motivation once to taking a shower. And it might have been Zig Ziglar. I'm not even sure where it came from. But he basically said motivation is like getting clean or taking a shower. Mm-hmm. You want to do it at least once a day. You want to do it often. You don't take a shower at the beginning of the week. Well, folks used to do that not too long ago. But you don't take hey, January 1st is coming up. I'm going to take my annual shower. All right. I'm clean. Now I don't need to do that anymore. Getting motivation on a regular basis is one of those things that I've personally found can rekindle that fire. So if internally my willpower is starting to slip, I have my why, I'm in touch with my why, but life is beating me down. Sometimes a good word from Rob or a good word from a friend or somebody who's there to just empathize and give me just that little word, that little sentence, that little phrase, who knows, it could pick me up and give me the energy to go one more mile. So I really like that you guys are providing that daily encouragement on your show.
Yeah, that was part of the thing I was thinking of. I was like, well, I need to, it's only 10 to 20 minutes. And I wanted to have it so they could listen to it on the way to work. Or I also gave the example of if somebody's had a really bad half day of work, they can, when they are in line at Chipotle, they can listen to a 10 to 20 minute podcast and then they can go in and have a very successful second half of the day after listening to it.
I like that. Rob, I want to, with your permission, maybe go back a little bit and talk about something you alluded to. You talked about losing your father at a young age. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I had an alcoholic father, and my parents got separated when I was 9. They got divorced when I was 10. And like I actually said, I mentioned to it real quickly when I was just talking about a why behind something. I never had I slept on the couch all the time. I never had a room growing up. And it's interesting because my father passed away at 15 from being an alcoholic. He had liver failure, and then obviously a bunch of other organs and stuff started to fail from there. And I look back now almost 15 years later, and I'm like, man, I think that I had a really good mindset. I don't know where it came from because it wasn't like I was a successful 15-year-old. I was just a typical kid. But I remember when it was 2 weeks after my father passed away, and I was leaving the Olive Garden with my mom and my sister because it was my sister's 21st birthday. And my mom asked us the questions. She said, it had been 2 weeks, so she could kind of ask us questions about my father's death and everything. And it wasn't like my father was not present. He was in there, he was gone. And but I was still very close with him, and it was very unexpected that he passed away. And she said, "What do you think of your father's death? And what do you think this is going to do to your life?" And I don't know how at 15 years old I had the mindset, but I said, you know what? I think I'm at peace with this, and I think that more than anything else, a lot of good is going to come from it. And wow. I think that with what I'm going to do with my life from this point on, the dad would be really happy with the path that I'm going to go from here.
Wow.
And I look back, I know that's what I think when I look back, because I'm like, what kid says that at 15? Like, I don't even know. I'm like impressed by myself and not being on my soapbox type of way. I'm impressed by myself, and I'm like, wow, like how did a 15-year-old say something like that? And I don't know how I had that perspective, but it was just, we're all dealt different cards in life. And some people use that as a reason to play victim and to say, oh, my father passed away and he was an alcoholic and he was kind of around. But then, there were times that, there's obviously, when you have an alcoholic father, there's obviously horror stories and stuff like that. And I've got a ton of them, but that I wasn't going to let that define me as a person to take that and become negative from there. So that's kind of the past that I was given, and the past doesn't equal the future. So I decided to make my own future from there.
That's a really fascinating story. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Very personal story. And it strikes me that a lot of the individuals in public life that we've seen have a lot of success have come from a lot of adversity. Mm-hmm. It almost seems like our advantage in life comes from that adversity. Yeah. At the very least, even if you have that adversity, whether it's the unfortunate passing of your father, Rob, at a young age, or whatever else the listener is going through, even if you don't take anything directly from that experience into your eventual success, when you do become successful, people will be able to identify with you all the more because they'll say, wow, if he came from this and was able to make it, if she came from that and was able to make it, maybe I can do it too.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and this is another one of those things I sit around whenever it's quiet and I think about is the way that people view their circumstances. And it's like the story, I think I heard Tony Robbins say it one time, where he says there was an alcoholic father that had 2 sons. They were twin boys, and 25 years down the road, they go and find the 2 boys, and one of them is an alcoholic, and they go up to him and they say, why are you an alcoholic? And he says, well, I'm an alcoholic because my father's an alcoholic. Then they find the other twin, and the other twin's a successful entrepreneur, and they say, why are you not an alcoholic? And he says, I'm not an alcoholic because my father's an alcoholic. And they have the exact same situation, raised exactly the same, but their viewpoint on their father being an alcoholic and what they wanted their life to be from there. I think that for me and for other people, you said sometimes people are very successful that have horrible backgrounds, and that's true for a lot of people. But I think partially the reason why is, I'll be honest, I think that it's an advantage in some cases because a lot of people don't think of it as an advantage. But I think it's an advantage because I look back and go, well, I overcame the first death I ever had in my entire life was my father's death. If I overcame that, I can overcome almost anything. So getting a no sale or having somebody say no to my business proposal means absolute crap to me because I've overcome way worse stuff in my life. So I think that more than anything else, it's just how you view. You can view everything that happens as a positive or a negative. And I tell everybody that I talk to about it is my father's death was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but my father's death was also the best thing that ever happened to me.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Almost drawing strength from that pain.
Mm-hmm.
If I survive this, I can survive that. Yeah. Tell me, I want to talk about this topic because I find it fascinating, Rob, and you've covered this on your show. The 5 regrets of the dying.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So the 5 regrets of the dying is a podcast episode that I had to do, and the reason why was because I was reading the book. Let me pull it up real quick, and I'll actually tell you the 5 regrets of the dying. What it is it's a lady who, it's a book, and it's a lady who was working at a hospice of all of these people who, they go to this place, and they go to this place knowing they're going to die. They have terminal illness, and I love to learn from people, and I love to have mentors. And the reason why is because they've already gone through what I'm going through, and I can learn a lot from them. And so the 5 regrets of the dying was that there was these 80, 90-year-old people, and they have these regrets that she just kept hearing over and over and over again of stuff they wish they would have done or the way they would have lived their life differently. And the one that she heard the most, this is the one that I think strikes the truest with most people. The 5 regrets are, number 1 is I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the one that others have expected of me. That was the one that she heard all of the time, is that people live their lives doing what they feel that they're supposed to do or what they've been told to do or what society tells them to do. And, most of the time that's usually going to college, getting into debt, working a corporate job, getting a family, and then just kind of, getting by and not following their passion of, playing music or being a painter or whatever it might be. And then they get to the end of their life and they're just like, I wish I would have followed. I wish I would have put my 10,000 hours to become really great at something. And so the second one is I wish I hadn't worked so hard. The third one is I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. The fourth is I wish I had stayed in touch with my good friends. And the fifth one was I wish I had let myself be happier. So it's it's like going into a time machine. You get to see all of the mistakes these people made and say, well, I still have time on this earth. How can I learn from these 5 mistakes that these people said over and over again? And how can I make sure that I don't have these regrets when I get to the end of my life?
So Rob, let's talk about that first one. I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself. For our friends who are listening right now, they're in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, they're parents, entrepreneurs, they've got kids, they're hyper busy, maybe not getting a lot of sleep, hardly any time to start doing something extra. For someone like that who's saying, you know what, so much of what I've done has been to please other people or to meet other people's expectations, but I want to change. I'd like to start moving in a different direction. How can we help that sort of individual start to pivot?
Yeah, that's actually something that I'm real passionate about is finding what someone else is passionate about. And I'm lucky where I know what I'm passionate about. The 2 things that I'm most passionate about in this world. The first one is music. I'm a musician. I'm obsessed with music. And the second thing is motivating others and trying to help other people. Those are my 2 biggest passions. And I have a lot of other hobbies and stuff, but I know most people, they don't have hobbies and they don't have passions. And so I've spoken with a lot of people on this topic of if somebody's out there and they're listening and they don't know what their passion is, they don't know the reason why they're on this earth. Most people are going to say their family, which is, commendable, but there's also other things besides just family, besides outside of your family life. What is it that you're put on earth for? And the only real way, because I can't tell you what your passion is, you have to find out what it is. And the only real way that I've come up with, talking with tens and tens of people of how can someone find out what they're passionate about? And it always seems to come down to journaling. That's it. You need to take time with yourself, maybe wake up a little bit early every single morning. And, if the kids wake up at 7, maybe wake up at 6:30, have some coffee. And as you're having coffee, just write. Just take 15 minutes or so and just write whatever you want to write about. And eventually, once you start getting used to writing and start putting all of this stuff on paper, your mind starts to kind of work out all of the kinks. And whatever it is that you're passionate about, is it's a crazy thing because I've come to realize that most people don't go after their passion because they think that there's no money in their passion, whatever it might be. But there might, like for instance, I'll take a painter. My girlfriend's a really good painter, and I've been trying to talk to her about how she should paint more. And then I bought her a whole bunch of painting supplies. It's like, hey, this is all here. It's free. This is just for whatever you want to do. And she's been painting a lot. And so the thing about that is that she's got her day job, but then she also has been painting. And I'm like, why don't we try to see if we can make some money off of this? Like, I want you to try to make money from it. My goal is just to have her get her first dollar off of a painting, so it clicks. And then she's like, well, I could actually do this on the side, and she could, it doesn't have to be her full-time job of being a painter, but it's her self-expression of like, hey, here's, whatever makes sure you come alive inside. So for her, it's painting. Right. So I want her to come alive inside with that. And when she starts to make money off of it, she'll also become more passionate about it. And then we find that there's this app called Van Gogh, and you can sell your paintings online. People can just flip through it. So what we've been doing is getting all of these paintings right. She's going to start putting them on Van Gogh. So for somebody else that's out there that might not be a painter or a musician, whatever it is, just journal and you'll find out what you're most passionate about. It might be that you're most passionate about helping other people. And how do you want to help other people? Maybe there's a charitable society, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be something that you necessarily make money on. It just has to be something that makes you feel like you're really you. And most people just, when they say they haven't lived the life true to themselves, there's something that they're holding back because they're worried about others' opinions. And you have to stop worrying about others' opinions and just find out what it is that makes you come alive.
True words. Journaling, that is a powerful, powerful example. Yeah. So simple, so accessible. Folks, if you're not journaling yet, go ahead and get started. There's no excuse to not do that. Okay, Rob, we've had you for a minute. I got to let you go so you can get your day started. But before you go, Rob, there's a lot of stuff we didn't even get to touch on. There's so much more good stuff that I want to get into with Rob. Maybe we'll be able to get him back on the show before too long. But we're going to leave you guys wanting more. Before I get into the lightning round, which is how we wrap up the show.
Ooh, this is going to be fun. I didn't know there was a lightning round.
There's a lightning round. Okay. And you might not make it through the lightning round.
Okay, all right, I'm ready.
I
just sat up in my chair a little bit. I'm ready for this.
That's right. We'll see if his 10,000 hours, folks, have prepared him for the lightning round. Where can folks go to get more information about the wonderful work that you're doing, Rob?
If somebody wants to listen to my podcast, it's MWF Motivation. The reason why it's MWF is just because it comes out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I tried to make it as simple as possible for people to remember what day it comes out. So MWF Motivation, there's no spaces there. And then if somebody wants to go to my website, maybe there's someone who doesn't read a whole lot and they want to get into reading. I wrote a 37-page self-help book that was just every self-help book I've ever read. They can download if they want to at mwfmotivation.com. And it's called Hack Your Goals, the Step-by-Step Guide to Achieving Success.
I love it. Hack Your Goals, the step-by-step guide to achieving success. That sounds great for those of us who are really pressed for time. Yeah. Okay, so speaking of being pressed for time, we have 1 minute. We're going to put you through the lightning round. All right, we're going back to your childhood, Mr. Rob Dow. First and foremost, who was your favorite superhero growing up?
Favorite superhero, Superman.
Superman. He goes for the classic one. Yep. Iconic. Okay, favorite cartoon growing up?
Bugs Bunny.
Bugs Bunny. That's the first on this show. Bugs is timeless. My kids love Bugs Bunny. Favorite video game, Rob?
Ooh, Halo.
Wow. Okay. All right. What about a favorite family tradition?
Fishing. I grew up on an island, so fished a lot.
Wouldn't have guessed that. That's very cool. Very cool. What, Rob, was maybe one embarrassing moment that you had as a kid? One of those moments, cringe-worthy moments that you wish you could take back?
I remember in middle school, whenever people ask this question, I remember in middle school I was pantsed by somebody in the middle of gym class, and that was probably the most embarrassing moment of my life.
I'm so sorry. And one more question, Rob. What would you say is one amazing breakthrough that you've had as an entrepreneur?
That I can really achieve anything that I want, depending on how hard I want to work for it and how bad I want it. And I think that most people, they hear that and they think it's just a load of crap. But I think it's honestly true that we're way more powerful than we could possibly believe. And I've come to the realization that that is 100% true. And I've finally realized that deep down to my core that I can, and so can anybody else, achieve whatever they want. They just have to figure out what it is and put the time into it.
Mr. Rob Dial.
Yes, sir.
Folks, you heard him here. He is the young co-host of the MWF Motivation Podcast. He's inspiring you to become the best version of yourself. I think you guys, like myself, are fired up after talking to this guy. Guys, if you help enough people get what you want, Rob believes the rest is going to be taken care of. So go find your passion, start journaling, serve your audience, put in the work, 10,000 hours. Don't ever give up. Rob Dial, thank you.
Oh, thank you. This was fun. This is a lot of fun. I like that. I like the lightning round, and I like the intro. I'm going to call you every time I walk into a room from now on. So people know who just walked into the room.
It's Rob Dial. Y'all didn't know?
Oh, that's awesome.
Mr. Rob Dial, thank you very much. This was a lot of fun. I hope we can have you back in the future.
Absolutely.
Because we got some other really great stuff we could talk about.
I would love to.
All right, folks, this is the Bravepreneur Parents Academy, your host, Balaji O. Until tomorrow, up, and away!
Thanks for supporting my dad's show. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to iTunes. He said hot chocolate is for closers. If you don't subscribe, I don't get hot chocolate. I love hot chocolate.
Fear not. Although this chapter of Bravepreneur Parents Academy has come to its conclusion, we have many more adventures for you and your brave little heroes. Head over to bravequest.me for access to the Brave Quest Journal, an interactive activity playbook that rewards your little ones with points for accomplishing tasks that build character and unleash your child's inner superhero all before bedtime. We look forward to having you join us for more adventures next time on Bravepreneur Parents Academy.